I am creating a real game in Unreal Engine. Is Unreal Engine good for making 2D games? No. No, it is not. Alright, so what are we gonna do first? Well, to know what we're gonna do first, we gotta know what's the most important, because you always start with the most important thing. In this case, the most important thing would of course be the code. The code is what runs the game, and then the art is how the game looks, music, vibes. If you have good vibes, people play your game. The game is to be simple. You just want to play without reading a manual. And there needs to be good content in the game. But because I am bored, we're gonna start with the user interface to make the game simple, and then we'll do the code. But making the game simple doesn't mean that making the game simple is simple to do. I had a lot of trouble with it. I tried making some sort of icon where you can see the cooldown of your special ability, because we have multiple special abilities, and of course need to know when you can use them. But it didn't go very well. As you see, I pressed save a lot of times and compile to test how it looked, but it was kind of horrible. The idea is to have a little hotbar with several abilities, so you can easily switch between them and use them, of course. And to do that, we make one little square which holds the hotkey you use to switch to the ability you want to use, and of course text that shows the remaining cooldown if there is any, and an image so you can see this is the ability we're gonna use. But I'll still say it, these images are placeholders, they are not used in the final game, just so we can see how an image would look like if we were to add another one. So we don't have to do that after we have added all the codes, because it would just be a lot of work to change all the code. That's why you want to make your code as flexible as possible. So the only thing you have to do is import an image, and the code automatically finds it and sets it as the image you're using. I already pressed save 25 times or something here, which is already crazy on its own, because you should not be pressing it that much. I might have become addicted at this point. But now that we have the UI, we can add an image, which is once again a placeholder. I just create my own. I know, pixel art. I am bad, but this is not my job. I do not intend to make my job out of making pixel art. And this is just something we'll use to be able to distinct different abilities, because of course we want more than one ability. A game with only one or two abilities would be kind of boring. Now we have this square, once again a square, which we can duplicate and add to a tile box, and then we're already done with the ability hotbar. Now you also may be wondering, why even bother making art if you don't use it for the final product, and if it's this bad? Well, the art department seems slow, and the world is ending soon anyway, so who cares? Now that we have a little cooldown in the bottom right, so we can see how much cooldown is left for each of our abilities, we can actually work on the hotbar, so we can switch between abilities. What we'll do is we have a tile view, which we can assign a widget to, the widget we have created earlier, a little square, and we can give some values to that widget, and those values we can then display on the widget, such as the image, cooldown, the name, hotkey, whatever you want. So what we have to do is we have to get all of the abilities that we want to show on the hotbar, because maybe you want to switch certain abilities, you don't want the hotbar always to be the same, so it can change. And thus we have to make the code flexible. Again, the code wants to update itself. You do not want to always change the code whenever you change data. So we check if the hotbar has changed, and if it has, then we add new widgets. But to make it easier to see, we need a new ability, so we can actually test, have we changed the abilities, have we changed the hotbar. So we're making a dash ability. Yes, not used in the final game, purely because you like to see me draw things, and so it's just easier to test and to see when you're watching this. Now that we have a simple placeholder image, we can go back to the code and add it to the data. The data we have in a special struct for our widget, so widget can easily receive information, and that information it will display. What the code will do is check for any changes in the hotbar, and if there are changes, then we delete the entire hotbar. Sounds a bit drastic, but it's easier. And then we can add, if there are two abilities, two widgets, and say this is the cooldown, this is the name, this is the hotkey, this is the image, by a special struct. So only what we have to do is get a lot of information from the player, pass all the information to our tile view, and the tile view will give it to the widget, and the widget will display it on the screen. Now you can see a little hotbar in the bottom. We can switch between the two abilities, our summon and our dash abilities. If we have more abilities, it would automatically grow, so we don't have to do it manually. And we can see the cooldown, so it works flawlessly. Now I can finally relax again. Although, when was the world ending again? Wait, what?